She danced to drown the memories. But when a drunk's hand gripped her wrist, another man's voice cut through the bass like a gunshot. Let her go. The club froze. The man who stepped between them wasn't a savior. He was Damien Cade, the city's most feared name. And as his eyes locked on hers, Ivy Monroe didn't realize he hadn't just saved her. He'd chosen her. The lights at the Ember Lounge glowed amber and low, the kind that made broken people feel whole for a few hours. Bass pulsed through the floor. Glasses clinked. Bodies swayed in rhythm or oblivion. Sometimes both. It was a typical Friday night for everyone except Ivy Monroe. She moved on the dance floor like someone trying to outrun her own shadow. Her body remembered what her mind wanted to forget. The audition where they told her she was too old at 27, the partner who chose her understudy over her, the career that died not with applause, but with silence. She'd traded Broadway dreams for rent checks, prestige for anonymity, her name for a paycheck at clubs where no one asked questions. The music drowned out the voices in her head. The movement replaced the tears she'd stopped shedding months ago. Dancing wasn't art anymore. It was survival. She didn't notice the man watching her from across the room, not until another man ruined everything. Hey, beautiful. His breath reeked of whiskey and entitlement. Dance with me. I'm fine alone, Ivy said, trying to step away. His hand shot out, fingers digging into her wrist. Don't be like that. The room tilted. Panic flared. She'd learned the hard way that fighting only made men like this angrier. Then everything stopped. Let her go. The voice came from behind them, low, controlled, not loud, but the kind of voice that made people obey before they even turned around. A man in a tailored charcoal suit stepped between them like he owned the space. Tall, dark-haired, with the kind of face that looked carved rather than born. His expression was calm, but his eyes held something ancient and unyielding. The drunk man lifted his hands immediately. We were just leaving. The suited man didn't blink. Now. He didn't argue. He just melted into the crowd like he'd never existed. Ivy stared, trying to steady her breath. I didn't need... Yes, you did. His gaze swept over her, assessing. Sit down. Excuse me? He gestured to the bar. You're shaking. Sit. She wanted to argue, but her legs betrayed her. She sat. The man signaled the bartender with 2 fingers. Miles appeared instantly, nodding like he'd been given orders he couldn't refuse. A glass of water materialized in front of Ivy. No one asked if she wanted it. Who are you? Ivy asked, her voice sharper than she felt. Someone who knows when a woman's being hunted. I wasn't. If you felt something while watching, please subscribe. That's how I know these stories mean something to you. Even on your TV, take a second to join our community of story lovers. Your support keeps this world of emotions alive. You were. He leaned slightly against the bar, close enough to be protective, far enough to not be threatening. This isn't the kind of place you come alone unless you're running from something, or someone. Her throat tightened. That's none of your business. Tonight it is. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Jaw tightening almost imperceptibly, then pocketed it. Do you have a ride home? Silence. That's what I thought. He straightened, adjusting his cufflinks like this was all routine. I'll take you. I don't get into cars with strangers. His smile was small, knowing. Smart, but you also don't have another option right now. I'll call a cab. At midnight? Alone? After what just happened? He tilted his head. You're either brave or reckless. I'm guessing the second. Ivy's hands curled into fists. She hated that he was right. Outside, the night air bit at her skin. A black car idled at the curb, sleek and silent. The driver stepped out immediately, opening the rear door without being asked. Ivy hesitated. "I'm not the man you should be afraid of," the stranger said quietly. "But if you go back in there, or walk home alone, you'll meet one who is." She looked back at the club, the golden lights, the music, the safety of strangers. Then she got in. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. The seats were too soft, the silence too heavy. She leaned her head against the window, exhaustion pulling at her bones. She heard the driver's low voice. "Where to, Mr. Cade?" Cade. Her eyes flew open. Damien Cade. That name. She'd heard it whispered in dressing rooms, in back alleys, in news articles that never quite told the whole story. Money, power, danger wrapped in expensive suits. Her pulse spiked. "You're tired," he said, cutting her off. His voice was softer now. "And so are you." The city blurred past. Her eyelids grew heavy despite herself. Before sleep took her, she heard him say something she wasn't sure was meant for her ears. "You'll be safe tonight. I'll make sure of it." When Ivy woke, sunlight sliced through unfamiliar curtains. The room was elegant but restrained. Gray walls, white linens, furniture that looked designed rather than decorated. Her clothes were still on. Her bag sat on a chair near the door. Her phone was charging on the nightstand beside a glass of water and 2 aspirin. She sat up slowly, head pounding, memories returning in fragments. The club, the stranger, the voice, the car, Damien Cade. She pressed her palms against her eyes. What the hell had she done? Then she noticed the note on the nightstand, written in sharp, deliberate handwriting. "You're safe. Rest. We'll talk when you're ready." Ivy's hands trembled as she picked it up. She didn't know if she'd been saved or claimed, but she had a terrible feeling she was about to find out. She didn't dance to seduce anyone. She danced to survive the night without screaming. But the moment a drunk stranger's hand closed around her wrist, another man's voice cut through the music like a blade. "Let her go." The lights at the Ember Lounge glowed amber and low, the kind that made broken people feel whole for a few hours. Bass pulsed through the floor. Glasses clinked. Bodies swayed in rhythm or oblivion, sometimes both. It was a typical Friday night for everyone except Ivy Monroe. She moved on the dance floor like someone trying to outrun her own shadow. Her body remembered what her mind wanted to forget. The audition where they told her she was too old at 27. The partner who chose her understudy over her. The career that died not with applause, but with silence. She'd traded Broadway dreams for rent checks, prestige for anonymity, her name for a paycheck at clubs where no one asked questions. The music drowned out the voices in her head. The movement replaced the tears she'd stopped shedding months ago. Dancing wasn't art anymore. It was survival. She didn't notice the man watching her from across the room. Not until another man ruined everything. "Hey, beautiful." His breath reeked of whiskey and entitlement. "Dance with me." "I'm fine alone," Ivy said, trying to step away. His hand shot out, fingers digging into her wrist. "Don't be like that." The room tilted. Panic flared. She'd learned the hard way that fighting only made men like this angrier. Then everything stopped. "Let her go." The voice came from behind them. Low, controlled. Not loud, but the kind of voice that made people obey before they even turned around. A man in a tailored charcoal suit stepped between them like he owned the space. Tall, dark-haired, with the kind of face that looked carved rather than born. His expression was calm, but his eyes held something ancient and unyielding. The drunk man lifted his hands immediately. We were just leaving. The suited man didn't blink. Now. He didn't argue. He just melted into the crowd like he'd never existed. Ivy stared, trying to steady her breath. I didn't need. Yes, you did. His gaze swept over her, assessing. Sit down. Excuse me? He gestured to the bar. You're shaking. Sit. She wanted to argue, but her legs betrayed her. She sat. The man signaled the bartender with 2 fingers. Miles appeared instantly, nodding like he'd been given orders he couldn't refuse. A glass of water materialized in front of Ivy. No one asked if she wanted it. Who are you? Ivy asked, her voice sharper than she felt. Someone who knows when a woman's being hunted. I wasn't. You were. He leaned slightly against the bar, close enough to be protective, far enough to not be threatening. This isn't the kind of place you come alone unless you're running from something. Or someone. Her throat tightened. That's none of your business. Tonight it is. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, jaw tightening almost imperceptibly, then pocketed it. Do you have a ride home? Silence. That's what I thought. He straightened, adjusting his cufflinks like this was all routine. I'll take you. I don't get into cars with strangers. His smile was small, knowing. Smart. But you also don't have another option right now. I'll call a cab. At midnight? Alone? After what just happened? He tilted his head. You're either brave or reckless. I'm guessing the second. Ivy's hands curled into fists. She hated that he was right. Outside, the night air bit at her skin. A black car idled at the curb, sleek and silent. The driver stepped out immediately, opening the rear door without being asked. Ivy hesitated. I'm not the man you should be afraid of, the stranger said quietly. But if you go back in there, or walk home alone, you'll meet one who is. She looked back at the club. The golden lights, the music, the safety of strangers. Then she got in. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. The seats were too soft, the silence too heavy. She leaned her head against the window, exhaustion pulling at her bones. She heard the driver's low voice. Where to, Mr. Cade? Cade. Her eyes flew open. Damien Cade. That name. She'd heard it whispered in dressing rooms, in back alleys, in news articles that never quite told the whole story. Money, power, danger wrapped in expensive suits. Her pulse spiked. You're tired, he said, cutting her off. His voice was softer now. And so are you. The city blurred past. Her eyelids grew heavy despite herself. Before sleep took her, she heard him say something she wasn't sure was meant for her ears. You'll be safe tonight. I'll make sure of it. When Ivy woke, sunlight sliced through unfamiliar curtains. The room was elegant but restrained. Gray walls, white linens, furniture that looked designed rather than decorated. Her clothes were still on. Her bag sat on a chair near the door. Her phone was charging on the nightstand beside a glass of water and 2 aspirin. She sat up slowly, head pounding, memories returning in fragments. The club, the stranger, the voice, the car. Damien Cade. She pressed her palms against her eyes. What the hell had she done? Then she noticed the note on the nightstand, written in sharp, deliberate handwriting. You're safe. Rest. We'll talk when you're ready. Ivy's hands trembled as she picked it up. She didn't know if she'd been saved or claimed, but she had a terrible feeling she was about to find out. Ivy left before Damien returned. She called a cab from the guest room, slipped out through the marble foyer, and didn't look back. By the time she reached her apartment in Brooklyn, the sun was high and unforgiving. Her building looked smaller than she remembered, dingier. The hallway smelled like mildew and someone's burnt breakfast. Her keys stuck in the lock the way they always did. Inside, nothing had changed. Bills fanned across the kitchen counter. Electricity, phone, credit cards she couldn't pay. Her old dance shoes sat by the window, ribbons frayed, leather cracked. The silence pressed against her ears like cotton. She dropped her bag and leaned against the door, letting out a breath she'd been holding since she woke up. What the hell happened last night? She'd been rescued, or taken. She still wasn't sure which. Then she saw them. A bouquet of black roses sat on the floor just outside her door, wrapped in crisp black paper. No card. No name. Just a dozen thorned stems the color of midnight. Ivy's stomach turned. She nudged them with her foot, half expecting something. A note. A threat. An explanation. Nothing. She left them in the hallway and locked the door behind her. The next night, she went back to the Ember Lounge. She told herself it was because she needed the tips, because rent was due, and her savings account mocked her with 2 digits, because dancing was the only thing she had left that felt like hers. But deep down, she knew the truth. She wanted to see if he'd come back. The club was packed. Music throbbed. Bodies moved in waves of heat and perfume. Ivy slipped into the rhythm like muscle memory, letting the bass drown out the questions circling her mind. But tonight felt different. Every shadow seemed to watch her. Every stranger's gaze lingered too long. She spun, dipped, arched, but the usual freedom didn't come. Instead, unease crawled up her spine like fingers on keys. She caught Miles watching her from behind the bar. When she finally took a break, she slid onto a stool, breathless. Whiskey. Neat. Miles poured without a word, but his eyes stayed on her longer than usual. "What?" Ivy asked, defensive. He leaned in, voice low. "You left with him the other night." "I didn't have a choice." "That's the point." Miles wiped down the bar, jaw tight. Damian Cade doesn't do favors, Ivy. He doesn't save people. He owns them. Her pulse quickened. "I don't belong to anyone." "You think that matters?" Miles glanced toward the door, then back at her. Men like him don't see boundaries. They see opportunities. And the moment he stepped in for you, you became his business. Ivy's fingers tightened around her glass. "I didn't ask for his help." "Doesn't matter. You got it anyway." Miles straightened, his expression softening just slightly. "I'm just saying, be careful. He's not the kind of man you walk away from. Not without paying for it somehow." The whiskey burned going down, but it didn't warm her. An hour later, Ivy stepped outside for air. The alley behind the club was quiet except for distant traffic and the muffled thump of bass through brick walls. She lit a cigarette with shaking hands, inhaling smoke and trying to steady herself. Then she heard the engine. A black car rolled to a stop at the mouth of the alley. Sleek, silent, expensive. The back door opened, and Damian Cade stepped out. He looked exactly the same. Tailored suit, dark eyes, the kind of calm that made everything else feel chaotic. He held something in his hand. Her jacket. The one she'd left in his car. "You dropped this," he said, walking toward her with measured steps. Ivy's heart hammered. "You were watching me." "Protecting," he corrected, stopping just close enough that she had to tilt her head to meet his eyes. She laughed, cold, bitter. "From what?" His gaze didn't waver. "From everything that comes after being seen." "I didn't ask to be seen." "No," he agreed. "But you were." And now other people are watching too. The cigarette trembled between her fingers. What does that mean? Damien stepped closer, and she caught the faint scent of his cologne. Cedar and smoke and something darker. It means the moment I touched that man's wrist, I made a statement. And statements in my world have consequences. Then unmake it, Ivy said, voice rising. Tell whoever's watching that I'm nothing to you. His jaw tightened. Something unreadable flickering across his face. I don't lie. The weight of those 3 words settled between them like a verdict. Ivy's breath hitched. I don't need a protector. Maybe not. He extended the jacket toward her. But you have one anyway. She snatched it from his hand, anger sparking. I didn't ask for this. Most people don't ask for the things that change their lives. His voice dropped, softer now, almost regretful. They just happen. He turned to leave, and panic flared in her chest. Not because she wanted him to stay, but because she didn't understand what was happening. Didn't understand why a man like him cared about a woman like her. Why me? She called after him. Damien paused at the car door, glancing back over his shoulder. The streetlight caught his profile. Sharp, shadowed, dangerous. Because you're the first person in a long time who didn't want anything from me. His smile was faint, almost sad. And that makes you either the safest person I've ever met, or the most dangerous. He slid into the car, and the door closed with a soft, final click. The engine purred. The car pulled away, taillights bleeding red into the night. Ivy stood there, jacket clutched in her hands, cigarette burning down to the filter. Confused, furious, and terrified by how much she wanted him to come back. Because Miles was right. Damien Cade wasn't the kind of man you walked away from. And somehow, without even trying, she'd become the kind of woman he wouldn't let go. Ivy made it 3 days before her world shattered again. 3 days of double shifts at the club, avoiding eye contact with Miles, and pretending she didn't feel the weight of invisible eyes tracking her every move. 3 days of telling herself that Damien Cade had moved on, that whatever strange protection he'd offered was finished. She was wrong. It was past midnight when she climbed the stairs to her apartment, exhausted down to her bones. The hallway light flickered. It always did, casting jittery shadows across peeling wallpaper. She fumbled for her keys, already imagining the silence waiting inside. Then she noticed her door. It was open. Just an inch. Just enough. Her blood went cold. Ivy pressed herself against the wall, pulse hammering in her ears. She should run, call the police, do literally anything except what she did next. She pushed the door open. The apartment had been torn apart. Drawers hung open, their contents scattered like confetti. Couch cushions lay slashed, stuffing spilling out like guts. Her few belongings, clothes, books, the remnants of a life she'd abandoned, were strewn across the floor in violent disarray. But the apartment was empty now. Whoever had done this was gone. Ivy's legs nearly gave out. She grabbed the doorframe, trying to breathe through the panic clawing up her throat. They'd been looking for something, searching, destroying. Her phone was in her hand before she realized she'd grabbed it. But who could she call? The police would ask questions she couldn't answer. Friends? She didn't have any left. She was alone, or so she thought. You shouldn't be here. Ivy spun around. A scream caught in her throat. Damien stood in the doorway, perfectly still, surveying the wreckage with cold, calculated eyes. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, less polished than before, but no less commanding. How did you... Her voice cracked. How did you know? I have someone watching your building. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. They called me the moment two men entered through the fire escape. You've been watching me? Protecting you. His gaze swept the room, cataloging the damage with professional detachment. There's a difference. Ivy's hands shook. Who were they? What did they want? Damien moved through the apartment with the ease of someone who'd seen worse. He crouched near the overturned coffee table, examining something she couldn't see. When he stood, he held a small flash drive between two fingers. This. She stared at it. I've never seen that before. I know. He pocketed it. They weren't after you, Ivy. They were after what your ex left behind. The name hit her like a fist. Leo? Leo Grant, small-time hacker with big-time stupidity. Damien's voice was matter-of-fact, almost bored. He stole information from Vincent Corbin, financial records, shell companies, enough evidence to put Corbin away for life, or get him killed, depending on who finds it first. Ivy's mind reeled. Leo. The man who'd promised her forever and delivered nothing but lies. The man who'd left her career in ruins when he convinced her to miss that final audition for a surprise that never came. The man who'd disappeared 6 months ago without explanation. Why would he leave it here? She whispered. Insurance? Or cowardice? Damien tilted his head. Corbin's people think you have it, or know where it is, which means they'll keep coming until they're convinced otherwise. Her breath came in short, shallow gasps. I don't know anything. I haven't seen Leo in... I know. His voice softened, just barely. But they don't. Ivy looked at the destruction surrounding her, every piece of her small, broken life ripped open and exposed. Anger sparked through the fear. You went through my apartment. I secured it. He didn't even have the decency to look apologetic. And I found what they were looking for before they killed you for it. You had no right. I saved your life. Damien stepped closer, and the air between them crackled with something dangerous. You're welcome. She hated him in that moment. Hated the way he said it like he owned her gratitude. Hated the way her pulse jumped despite her fury. Hated that he was right. Get out, she said, voice trembling. Just leave me alone. I can't do that. Yes, you can. Walk away. Forget you ever met me. I'll disappear. Change my name, leave the city. And they'll find you anyway. Damien's expression hardened. Corbin doesn't forget. He doesn't forgive. And he sure as hell doesn't let loose ends walk away breathing. Then what do you want from me? The question came out broken, desperate. He held her gaze, and for a moment something flickered in those dark eyes, something almost human. I want you to let me keep you alive. Why? Ivy's voice cracked. Why do you even care? Damien didn't answer immediately. He looked at her like he was solving a puzzle he didn't want to solve. Finally, he said, because I don't let innocent people die on my watch. Not when I can stop it. I'm not your responsibility. Yes, he said quietly. You are. The words hung between them, heavy, final, terrifying. Ivy wrapped her arms around herself. What if I refuse? What if I tell you to leave and never come back? Damien's jaw tightened. When he spoke again, his voice dropped to a warning whisper. Low and intimate and absolutely ruthless. If I walk away, they'll come for you again. And I won't be there next time. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. A fact delivered with the certainty of someone who knew exactly how the world worked and how easily it could break her. Ivy's throat burned. So I don't have a choice. You have one. He moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the frame. Come with me willingly. Or wait here and see what Corbin's men do when they realize that flash drive is gone. That's not a choice. That's coercion. Call it what you want. His eyes found hers one last time. But decide quickly. They know where you live now. And they won't be gentle a second time. He left her standing there, shaking, furious, and absolutely terrified. Because he was right. She'd never asked to be part of his world. Never asked for Leo's betrayal to chase her into the shadows. Never asked for a mafia boss to decide she was worth saving. But it was already too late. She was in this now. Whether she wanted to be or not. The car ride felt like a kidnapping dressed up as rescue. Callum drove. Damien's driver, silent as stone. Eyes fixed on the road with military precision. Ivy sat in the back beside Damien, watching the city blur past the tinted windows. She'd grabbed what she could from her destroyed apartment. A duffel bag of clothes, her phone, the photograph of her mother she kept hidden in a drawer. Everything else was gone. Or ruined. Or never really hers to begin with. Where are we going? She asked for the third time. Somewhere safe, Damien replied, scrolling through his phone with the casual focus of a man who orchestrated lives like chess moves. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Ivy bit back the urge to argue. She was exhausted. Physically, emotionally, existentially. The adrenaline from the break-in had faded, leaving only a hollow ache behind her ribs. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a building in Tribeca. Sleek glass, quiet money. The kind of place where doormen knew better than to ask questions. Callum opened her door. Damien led her inside without a word. The safe house was on the 12th floor. Modern, minimal, all clean lines and neutral tones. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The furniture looked expensive and unlived in. A kitchen gleamed unused. Everything was perfect, sterile, cold. "This is where you're staying," Damien said, setting her bag on the couch. Ivy turned slowly, taking it in. "How long?" "Until it's safe." "And when will that be?" His jaw tightened. "When I say so." She laughed, sharp, bitter. "So I'm your prisoner. You're under my protection." He loosened his tie, the first sign of tension she'd seen in him all night. "There's a difference." "Is there?" Ivy gestured at the windows. "Can I leave?" "Not without an escort." "Can I go back to work?" "No." "See my friends?" "You don't have any." The words were blunt, factual. Not cruel, just true. Ivy's chest tightened. He wasn't wrong. She'd isolated herself after Leo. After her career collapsed. After shame became easier to manage alone. "So, what am I supposed to do?" she asked quietly. "Just sit here and wait? Rest. Heal." Damien moved toward the door. "A guard will be posted outside. Jackson's handling the security detail. If you need anything." "I need to not be a captive." He stopped, hand on the doorframe, and turned back. His expression was unreadable. "Then don't act like one." Before she could respond, he gestured toward the dining table. A bag from an upscale restaurant sat there, still warm. "Dinner." "You haven't eaten." "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway." His voice softened, just barely. "You're no good to anyone if you collapse." He left before she could argue. Ivy stood alone in the pristine apartment, surrounded by luxury she didn't want and safety she didn't trust. She hated him, and she hated that she didn't entirely mean it. 3 days passed in surreal monotony. Ivy woke to sunlight streaming through bulletproof glass. She ate meals that appeared like clockwork. Breakfast at 8, lunch at 1, dinner at 7. She explored the apartment, finding nothing personal. No photos, no books, no signs anyone had ever lived here. It was a cage gilded in marble and steel. Damien visited in the evenings, always with food, always with questions she refused to answer. The tension between them thickened with every encounter. Unspoken want tangled with resentment. You can't keep me here forever, she said one night. I can keep you alive, he countered. Isn't that enough? Not if I'm not really living. His eyes darkened, but he didn't respond. On the fourth day, someone unexpected arrived. Ivy was curled on the couch, staring at nothing, when the door opened. A woman walked in, late 20s, sharp suit, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. She moved with the confidence of someone who belonged everywhere. You must be Ivy. The woman's smile was polite but assessing. I'm Serena Cade, Damien's cousin. Ivy stood slowly. Does he know you're here? Does it matter? Serena settled into the chair across from her, crossing her legs elegantly. I wanted to meet the woman who's made my cousin lose his mind. I haven't made him do anything. No? Serena tilted her head. Then why are you here? Why has he pulled half his men off active operations to guard one dancer? Why is Vincent Corbin circling like a shark? Ivy's throat tightened. I didn't ask for this. I know. Serena's expression softened, something almost sympathetic flickering across her face. But that doesn't change what's happening. You make him reckless, Ivy. Distracted. Vulnerable. That's not my fault. Isn't it? Serena leaned forward. He's not saving you out of altruism. This isn't some noble rescue. It's obsession. And obsession in our world gets people killed. The words landed like stones. Ivy sank back onto the couch, suddenly cold. What do you want me to do? She whispered. I want you to understand what you're dealing with. Serena stood, smoothing her skirt. Damien doesn't love like normal people. He consumes, he controls, and once he decides something is his, he doesn't let go. She left Ivy sitting there, Serena's warning echoing in the silence. That night, Ivy found Damien on the rooftop terrace. He sat alone at a small table, whiskey glass in hand, staring out at the city lights. For once, he looked almost human, tired, unguarded, the armor cracked just enough to glimpse what lay beneath. Serena came to see me, Ivy said quietly, stepping closer. Damien didn't turn. I know. She thinks I'm dangerous for you. She's right. The admission hung between them. Ivy wrapped her arms around herself against the night chill. Then why am I still here? He finally looked at her, and the raw honesty in his eyes stole her breath. Because you're the first thing I can't buy, can't intimidate, can't control. He set down his glass, and I don't know if that terrifies me or saves me. Ivy should have walked away. Should have demanded he let her go. Should have run from whatever this was before it consumed them both. Instead, she sat down beside him. They didn't speak, didn't touch, just sat in the darkness, two broken people pretending proximity could heal what words couldn't reach. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Ivy felt something other than fear. She felt seen. The dress arrived that morning. Black silk, elegant, expensive. A note in Damien's sharp handwriting. Wear this tonight. Trust me. Ivy held it up to the light, feeling the weight of the fabric, the unspoken command. She didn't want to go. Didn't want to be paraded through his world like proof of concept. But she also didn't want to stay trapped in the safe house, slowly losing her mind. So she wore the dress. Callum drove them to the plaza, where a charity gala was already in full swing. The ballroom gleamed, crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, people draped in wealth and secrets. Ivy felt every eye turn toward her as they entered, Damien's hand resting possessively on the small of her back. Smile, he murmured. You're supposed to be enjoying yourself. I'm supposed to be invisible, she countered. You could never be invisible. The evening crawled by in a blur of introductions she'd forget and conversations she didn't care about. Damien moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, playing the role of respectable businessman. But Ivy saw the calculation behind every smile. The way his eyes tracked exits. The way his body positioned itself between her and anyone who got too close. He wasn't showing her his world. He was showing his world that she belonged to him. Then Vincent Corbin appeared. He was older than she expected. Mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit. Charming smile that didn't reach his eyes. He approached with the confidence of a predator who'd already won. Damien. Corbin extended his hand. What a surprise seeing you here. Vincent. Damien's handshake was brief, controlled. I didn't know you supported children's literacy. I support many things. Corbin's gaze slid to Ivy, lingering. And you must be the famous Ivy Monroe. I've heard so much about you. Her skin crawled. Have you? A woman who makes the devil hesitate. His smile widened. That's quite an accomplishment. Damien's hand tightened on her waist. A warning. A claim. Ivy. This is Vincent Corbin. He was just leaving. Was I? Corbin's eyes danced with malice. I thought we might chat. About mutual interests. We have none. Are you certain? Corbin leaned closer, voice dropping. Because I think we both know that's not entirely true. The air crackled with violence, barely restrained. Ivy felt Damien's body coil beside her, ready to strike. Then Corbin stepped back, smile never faltering. Enjoy your evening, both of you. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving poison in his wake. The photo appeared online within the hour. Ivy didn't see it until they returned to the safe house. Jackson was waiting, tablet in hand, expression grim. We have a problem, he said. The image was everywhere. Social media, gossip sites, underground forums. Damien and Ivy on the dance floor, his hand on her waist. Her face caught in an unguarded moment that almost looked like happiness. The caption, Cade's weakness. Ivy's stomach dropped. Oh God. Damien studied the photo with cold fury. Who took this? We're tracing it now, Jackson said. But it's already gone viral. Everyone knows. Everyone knows what? Ivy asked, voice shaking. Damien met her eyes. That hurting you is the fastest way to hurt me. The words should have felt romantic. Instead, they felt like a death sentence. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She opened the message with trembling hands. You've just become a target. Run while you still can. Rhea Voss. Before Ivy could process it, glass exploded. The window shattered, bullet embedding itself in the wall inches from where she stood. Damien moved instantly, pulling her down, covering her body with his. Stay down, he growled. Shouts erupted, footsteps pounded. Jackson and the guards mobilized with military precision. Damien's arms locked around her, his heartbeat thundering against her back. When he finally pulled her up, his eyes blazed with something primal. Rage and fear twisted into one. You wanted to see the danger? He whispered, voice rough. There it is. Ivy couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel his hands on her shoulders, grounding her, claiming her. This is what my world looks like, Damien continued. This is what happens to people I care about. Then let me go, she said desperately. No. His grip tightened. Not anymore. Not ever. And in that moment, Ivy realized the terrifying truth. She wasn't just in danger. She was the danger. And there was no walking away from that. They left the city before dawn. Ivy watched through the car window as Manhattan disappeared behind them, replaced by highway, then trees, then the vast gray expanse of the Atlantic. Damien sat beside her, silent, his jaw tight with the kind of tension that came from decisions made under gunfire. No one spoke. Not Callum at the wheel. Not Jackson in the passenger seat. Phone pressed to his ear as he coordinated with the rest of Damien's security team. Not Ivy, who was still trying to forget the sound of shattering glass and the feeling of a bullet meant for her skull. 3 hours later, they arrived at the coastal estate. It rose from the cliffs like something out of a dream. Modern lines softened by weathered stone, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the ocean, wrapped in silence so complete it felt sacred. The air smelled like salt and pine. Waves crashed against the rocks below in rhythmic violence. "You'll be safe here," Damien said as they stepped inside. Ivy wanted to believe him, but safety felt like a foreign language she'd forgotten how to speak. The days blurred together in strange, suspended peace. Ivy woke to sunlight streaming across hardwood floors. She explored the property, cliffs that dropped into churning water, gardens gone wild, a greenhouse where lemon trees grew untended. The house itself was massive but surprisingly warm. Leather couches, bookshelves crammed with worn paperbacks, a kitchen that looked actually lived in. It was the first place Damien had brought her that felt real. At night, she danced in the empty living room, barefoot on polished wood, with only the sound of the ocean for music. She moved not to forget anymore, but to remember. Who she'd been before Leo, before the clubs, before survival became her only goal. Damien watched sometimes. She'd catch him in doorways, whiskey in hand, expression unreadable. He never interrupted, just observed like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. On the 4th day, he found her on the deck overlooking the water. "You should learn to protect yourself," he said. She turned. "I can handle myself. Not against the kind of people who want you dead." He held up a handgun, compact, black, efficient. "Let me teach you." Ivy stared at it. "I don't want to shoot anyone." "Neither did I. The first time." His voice dropped. "But want doesn't matter when someone's coming for you." She took the gun. It was heavier than she expected, cold against her palm. They spent the afternoon on a makeshift range behind the house. Empty bottles lined up on a stone wall, the ocean roaring below. Damien stood behind her, adjusting her stance, his hands on her hips, his voice low in her ear. "Breathe. Aim. Squeeze. Don't pull." The gun kicked. The bottle exploded. Again. By the time the sun started to set, her hands were steady and 7 bottles were shattered. "You're a natural," Damien said, something like pride in his voice. "I had a good teacher." She handed back the gun, and their fingers brushed. The contact sparked, brief and electric. He didn't let go immediately. "Ivy." "Don't." She pulled away. "Don't make this something it's not." But they both knew it already was. That night, Ivy found him in his study, a room she'd avoided until now. Sensing it was too personal, too revealing, he sat behind a massive desk, papers spread before him, whiskey glass catching lamplight. "Can't sleep?" she asked from the doorway. He glanced up. "Never could." She stepped inside, trailing her fingers along the bookshelves. "Tell me about them." "Who?" "Your parents. The people who made you into this." Damien's expression shuddered. "That's not a story worth telling." "I'll decide that." Ivy settled into the chair across from him. "You know everything about me. My failures, my ex, my destroyed career. I know nothing about you. He studied her for a long moment, weighing something internal. Finally, he spoke. My father built an empire on blood and silence. My mother looked the other way until she couldn't anymore. His voice was flat, emotionless. She left when I was 12 and died in a car accident 3 months later. People said it was bad luck. I knew better. Your father killed her. He didn't pull the trigger, but he might as well have. Damien drained his glass. I took over when I was 22. He'd made too many enemies, gotten sloppy. Someone had to clean up the mess. And your first kill? The question came out quieter than she intended. His eyes met hers. Dark, haunted, ancient. The man who tortured my father to death in front of me. I was 23. He begged. I didn't care. Ivy's breath caught. Do you regret it? No. The honesty was brutal. I regret that I didn't feel worse about it. The silence stretched between them, heavy with truths that couldn't be unsaid. Ivy stood, drawn by some gravitational pull she couldn't name. She moved around the desk, stopping just close enough to feel his heat. What's the cost? She whispered. Of all this power? Damien looked up at her, and for the first time she saw him completely unguarded. Everything that matters. Everyone I've ever cared about. Is that why you push people away? It's why I should push you away. His hand caught hers, thumb brushing across her knuckles. But I can't. The air between them ignited. Ivy didn't remember closing the distance. Didn't remember who moved first. Only that suddenly his mouth was on hers, fierce and desperate, tasting like whiskey and ruin. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and she climbed into his lap with abandon that should have terrified her. Control shattered. Surrender took over. They stumbled upstairs, shedding clothes and defenses in equal measure. Outside, a storm rolled in from the ocean, thunder shaking the windows, rain lashing against glass. Inside, they collided with the same violence, all heat and hunger and the kind of need that broke people open. He touched her like she was salvation. She held him like he was hers to keep. And when morning broke, soft and devastating, they lay tangled together, both knowing they'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Ivy traced the scars on his chest. Bullet wounds, knife marks, the physical cost of his empire. What happens now? She asked quietly. Damien caught her hand, pressing it over his heart. Now we survive. Together. She wanted to believe him. Peace shattered 3 days later. Serena arrived unannounced. Callum's car barely stopped before she burst through the door. Her face was pale, eyes wild with fear Ivy had never seen in her. There's a leak, Serena said, breathless. Someone told Corbin where you are. Damien went stone still. Who? Serena's gaze cut to Jackson, who stood frozen in the hallway. No, Damien said, voice dangerously quiet. Not him. But Jackson's expression crumbled. He dropped to his knees, hands shaking. They have my sister. Her daughter. Corbin sent photos. Said he'd kill them both if I didn't. How long? Damien's voice was arctic. 2 weeks, since the gala. Jackson's face was wet with tears. I never wanted... I tried to protect you, I swear. Damien crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbing Jackson by the collar. For a moment, Ivy thought he'd kill him. The violence radiated off him in waves, raw and terrible. Then he let go. Get out, Damien said. Take your sister and disappear. If I ever see you again, I'll finish what Corbin started. Jackson fled. Serena touched Damien's arm. We need to move. Now. Corbin could be... He's not coming here. Damien's voice was hollow. He's already won. Ivy stepped forward, fear clawing at her throat. What do you mean? Damien turned to her, and the look in his eyes broke her heart. It was the look of a man watching everything he'd fought for crumble. He knows my weakness now, and he'll use it until there's nothing left. She saw it then, the war raging inside him, the part that loved her, fierce and desperate, and the part that knew loving her would destroy them both. Damien, you should have stayed away from me, he said quietly. I warned you. I don't care. You will. He walked away, leaving her standing there with Serena, both of them watching the man they knew disappear behind walls that might never come down again. The meeting was set for midnight at a neutral location, some warehouse on the waterfront where men like Damien and Corbin negotiated temporary truces that never lasted. Ivy found him in the armory, loading weapons with mechanical precision. Don't go, she said. He didn't look up. I have to. It's a trap. You know it's a trap. Probably. He chambered around, the sound sharp in the silence. But if I don't end this, you'll never be free. Ivy grabbed his arm, forcing him to face her. I don't want freedom if it costs your life. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or pain. He cupped her face with both hands, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. This is the only way. Then let me come with you. No. Damien. I can't protect you and fight him at the same time. His voice cracked just barely. Stay here. Let me fix this. He kissed her. Slow, thorough, like he was memorizing the taste of her. Then he pulled away, grabbed his jacket, and left without looking back. Ivy stood alone in the armory, her heart screaming. She lasted 45 minutes before breaking. Callum found her pacing the living room, phone clutched in her hand. He'll be fine, Callum said, but he didn't sound convinced. No, he won't. Corbin wants him dead. This whole truce is... The front door slammed open. Logan, one of Damien's enforcers, stumbled inside, blood streaking his jacket, eyes wild. They took him. The world tilted. What? Ivy's voice didn't sound like hers. Ambush. They were waiting. Corbin's men. Too many. We tried to... Logan swayed and Callum caught him. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Ivy couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Damien was gone, taken, probably being tortured or worse while she stood here useless. Where? She demanded. I don't know, they blindfolded us, separated. Then we find out. Ivy spun toward Callum. You have access to Damien's network, right? His systems? Callum hesitated. Some, but... Then use them. Hack Corbin's communications. Track his men. I don't care what it takes. Her voice rose, desperate and fierce. He risked everything for me. Now it's my turn. Serena appeared in the doorway. Ivy, you can't... Yes, I can. Ivy met her gaze. Tell me you wouldn't do the same if it were someone you loved. Serena's jaw tightened. Then she nodded. Callum. Help her. It took 2 hours of frantic searching, hacking, and calling in favors Ivy didn't know existed. Finally, Callum pulled up a location. A riverfront warehouse in Red Hook, registered to a shell company tied to Corbin's operations. Recent activity. Multiple vehicles spotted. Perfect place for an interrogation. Or an execution. Ivy armed herself with shaking hands, the gun Damien had taught her to shoot, spare magazines, and a knife she hoped she wouldn't need. I'm coming with you, Serena said. Me too, Logan added, wincing through his injuries. Callum just nodded, already moving toward the car. They drove through rain-slicked streets, the city a blur of lights and shadows. Ivy's mind replayed every moment with Damien, every touch, every argument. Every time he'd saved her when she couldn't save herself, she wouldn't let him die for her. Not today. Meanwhile, in the warehouse, Damien Cade hung from chains in a room that smelled like rust and blood. His face was swollen, one eye nearly closed, ribs cracked, knuckles split from the few punches he'd managed to land before they'd overwhelmed him. But he was conscious, alert, and absolutely furious. Vincent Corbin circled him like a predator savoring a kill. All that power, he mused, all that control, undone by a woman. Damien spat blood. You'll never understand. Understand what? Love? Corbin laughed. Love is weakness. You taught me that yourself, years ago, remember? When you killed my brother? Your brother tried to rape a 14-year-old girl. Damien's voice was steady despite the pain. I'd do it again. Corbin's fist connected with his jaw. So righteous, so noble. And now you're going to die for a dancer who means nothing. She means everything. Damien lifted his head, meeting Corbin's eyes. And you'll never understand what it means to care about someone you can't control, can't break, can't own. Then I'll just kill her instead, Corbin smiled. Slowly, while you watch. Damien's expression went cold, the kind of cold that came before violence. You won't touch her. I won't have to. My men are already at the estate. For the first time, fear flickered across Damien's face. Corbin leaned close. You lose, Cade. You always do when you care. But Damien's lips curved into a bloody smile. That's where you're wrong. How so? Because she's not at the estate anymore. Corbin frowned. What? She's coming for me. And when she gets here, you're going to realize you made a very, very big mistake. Thunder rolled outside. Storm clouds gathered, and in the distance, car engines roared closer. Rain turned the docks into mirrors of broken light. The sky hung low, thick with thunder and gunmetal air. Ivy crouched behind a rusted container, heart hammering, breath fogging in the cold. Logan knelt beside her, checking the magazine of his gun. You're sure about this? He muttered. No, she said quietly, eyes fixed on the looming warehouse across the pier. But I'm doing it anyway. Inside those walls, Damien Cade was tied to a chair, beaten, bleeding, but not broken. She could feel him through the storm, the way you can feel a pulse beneath the skin even when it's weak. Logan's men, 3 of Damien's most loyal soldiers, waited for her signal. The sound of the waves crashing against concrete blended with the distant hum of machinery. Every noise felt amplified, each second stretching. She wiped the rain from her face and nodded. On my mark. Inside, Vincent Corbin poured himself a drink, his grin sharp under the flickering light. You know, Cade, I thought you were smarter. You always prided yourself on control. But a woman? He raised his glass. A dancer who thought she could save the devil? That's what undid you. Damien's head lifted slowly. His voice was low, ragged but steady. You talk too much. Corbin chuckled, walking closer, circling him like a vulture. She's out there right now, isn't she? Probably thinking she can rescue you. I almost hope she tries. Gives me the chance to show you how power really works. Damien's jaw tightened, eyes burning even through exhaustion. If you touch her... What? Corbin interrupted smoothly. You'll kill me? You can't even stand. Thunder cracked outside. Corbin turned, annoyed. What the hell? The doors exploded inward. Men poured in. Shouts, flashes, the metallic roar of gunfire. The warehouse lit up with chaos. Smoke swallowed the lights, and through the haze she appeared. Ivy, drenched in rain, her hands shaking but her eyes burning with defiance. Damien froze when he saw her. "Ivy," he growled, struggling against the ropes. "You shouldn't have come." "Too late," she said, stepping closer, gun trembling in her hand. "I'm not leaving without you." Corbin's laughter echoed. "Look at that. Your queen thinks she's not a pawn." Her hands tightened around the gun. "You should be afraid of queens." She fired. The bullet sliced through the air, grazing Corbin's shoulder. He stumbled back, fury twisting his face. "Kill them!" he screamed. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Logan's men retaliated. Bullets sparked against metal beams, glass shattered, the air filled with smoke and screams. Ivy ducked behind a pillar, heart pounding in her throat. "Cut him loose!" Logan yelled. She ran through the chaos, ducking, sliding, adrenaline surging. When she reached Damien, his wrists were raw from the ropes. She grabbed a blade from a fallen guard and sliced through the bindings. His hands fell free, blood streaking his skin. "You shouldn't have come," he rasped again, even as he grabbed a gun from the floor and began firing. "You're welcome," she shot back, reloading. Together they moved through the smoke, covering each other. Every shot an echo of trust. The floor was slick with rain and blood. Bodies dropped. The last of Corbin's men fled toward the back exit. Corbin staggered behind a stack of crates, pressing his wounded arm. "You think you've won?" he snarled. Damien stalked toward him, eyes cold. "You made one mistake," he said, raising his weapon. Corbin sneered. "And what's that? You thought I'd ever stop fighting for her." The gunshot was deafening. Corbin hit the ground, his glassy eyes staring at nothing. For a moment, the world went silent, just the patter of rain and the sound of breathing. Then a faint shuffle echoed behind them. One last gunman, bloodied but alive, rose from the floor, weapon aimed. "Ivy!" Damien shouted. She turned just as the gun went off. Time fractured, the flash, the sound, the pain blooming white-hot across her arm. She stumbled back, but before she could fall, Damien was there, pulling her against his chest. He turned, firing 2 quick shots. The gunman dropped. Then there was only the storm and the sound of Damien's ragged breathing. "You don't get to risk yourself for me," he said, voice breaking, hand pressing against the wound on her arm. She managed a weak smile. "Too late. I already did." He pulled her closer, rain and blood running together on the concrete. His forehead rested against hers. "You're impossible." "Thank you," she whispered. Sirens wailed in the distance. Logan's men dragged away the survivors. The war was over. But for Ivy and Damien, it had only just begun. Morning light filtered through hospital blinds, soft and slow. Ivy's eyes fluttered open. The antiseptic smell hit first, then the dull ache in her arm. She turned her head and froze. Damien was there, still in the same blood-stained shirt, slumped in a chair beside her bed, his hand wrapped tightly around hers. His usually perfect hair was a mess. A bruise shadowed his jaw, but he was breathing. She smiled faintly. "You look terrible." His eyes opened. The moment he saw her awake, something in his face softened. "You said rich men don't do happy endings," he murmured, voice rough with exhaustion. She grinned weakly. "Guess I was wrong." He smirked. "Guess I had to prove you wrong." For a while, they said nothing. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was peace. The kind neither of them had known in years. Weeks passed. The city changed quietly around them. Vincent Corbin's empire crumbled. His allies vanished. The Cade Syndicate, the empire Damien built, was stripped down piece by piece until nothing but whispers remained. Simplifying, the papers said. Ivy's arm healed, but the scar stayed, a reminder of everything she survived. One evening, she returned to the Ember Lounge. Same golden light, same hum of jazz and laughter. But it felt different now. The air didn't press on her chest anymore. She danced again, not to forget, but to remember, to feel alive. As she moved, she felt him before she saw him, the quiet weight of presence that always made the air shift. Still trying to forget? She turned. Damien stood at the edge of the bar, dressed in gray this time, his usual sharpness softened by something rare. Peace. Depends who's asking, she said, smiling. He stepped closer, eyes tracing her face like a promise. Round 2? She raised her glass, clinking it lightly against his. You'll lose again. He smiled, that small, dangerous curve she'd come to crave. That's the plan. The music swelled around them, and she took his hand, leading him to the floor. For once, he followed her lead. They moved slowly, no words needed. The crowd blurred, the past dissolved. And when she laughed, he finally understood. It wasn't about power or saving or control. It was about seeing each other, bruised and alive, and choosing to stay anyway. She had danced to forget her pain, but in his arms, she learned that some hearts don't heal by forgetting. They heal by being seen, even by the devil himself. If you enjoy stories like this, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That's how I'll know you truly liked it. Even if you're watching on your TV, grab a second to join this family of fans who love emotional and heartfelt stories. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more tales like this.